And welcome back to Culture Crossroads. It is time for the rundown. This edition, of course, with R.C. Williams and Juliana Ormond. It is all the news and notes you need to know in no particular order. These are the stories behind the headlines, and really, these are the moving pieces that are. If America was a car, these are the wheels that are keeping it in motion, going a certain way. And I don't really think that our steering wheel is working very well. That's just me. Nonetheless, let's kick off with this, friends. I'm going to add this to the stage here. This is the Genius Act. This is a picture here, CNBC. There's your credit for that. This, of course, from the headlines, Sherloc exposes from your research. From the article here today, Trump signed the Genius Act, which stands for Guiding and Establishing National Innovation for U.S. Stablecoins into Law. On paper, the legislation is meant to bring clarity and consumer protection to the $250 billion plus stablecoin market, but a deeper look reveals an all too familiar reality, carefully engineered framework written by and for major financial and tech interests. Well, let's start here. We talked about how we have a fake economy. We're going to get to that in a second, but we're going to start with this. What exactly is the real danger behind the Genius Act? And then how is that playing into our economy that may or may not be real?
So, Andrew, this actually stretches back further than even that article. This goes back to the very origination of Rip from the Headlines when we covered a story on Randall Crater and My Big Coin. And what we found going through thousands of pages of court testimony and evidence and things like this is that the government wants to pick winners and losers when it comes to cryptocurrency or digital currency of any kind. So if you fast forward to the Genius Act, it basically solidifies that. Here's how your central bank digital currency is going to work, even though we're masking it as something else, so that ultimately we can prepare when the economy fully implodes to just go to a digital currency and make all that bad stuff go away and make everybody whole, even though they've gone completely upside down. So, Andrew, your premise is basically that. They're saying, look, we're going to make this whole digital token, cryptocurrency, stablecoin market safe and effective, if I can use that term, for you and your family, and everything's going to be okay. But the Trojan horse, Andrew, if people continue to read that article, what they'll see is that the people that wrote this bill are all the big tech companies and the tech bros. So now you're in a place where you have a corporatocracy, or an oligarchy, as Juliana often refers to it as, where you're basically letting the fox manage the hen house. And so these guys put together everything that they want. Trump and his team say, well, they're the experts. We should probably go along with that. It sounds really good and it looks really good and they must know what they're doing. All the while, Andrew, this exact thing is the same way that we ended up with Obamacare. They let the big health companies and pharmaceutical companies write the bill. And they said, okay, looks good, let's go, I got my grift. This is no different, Andrew. And it's really scary to see the level of just naked, blatant, like, we're just gonna do this to you and you're gonna like it because the technocracy's in a red dress instead of a blue dress.
So let's take that and move this over to the broader conversation of the economy. We're being gaslit every day that the economy is great, it's never been better. Jobs are up, consumer spending is up. By the way, when you look into some of the consumer spending numbers, I was checking this out just this afternoon before we came on to do the program here. A lot of the consumer spending is credit card. And a lot of the credit card, the reason it shows up at retail places is because people are using it to pay their bills. People are using it to buy groceries because they don't have enough money left in their paycheck to cover everything else. So it can look like consumer spending is up, but really it's not. It's frozen. But the credit card debt is at a record high, student debt at a record high. How can we have all this debt, our own debt at a record high? We've never actually been in a situation like this. They keep saying also that the housing, that the problem is supply. It's not supply. We have more houses on the market than we've ever had. Nobody can afford to get in them. But we've never had this perfect storm altogether. And as we have said on the show for years, we are in a recession, if not in a depression. And it certainly looks like we're heading toward depression territory. We're in a recession and we're not getting out of it. But we're being gaslit on the whole thing. And it seems like the economy is being manipulated at the top end to look good in a headline. when again, the real temperature on the ground of us and our next door neighbors, it ain't. Is our economy fake? It really, I'm asking honestly, this can't be real. I'm sorry, and I know I'm going off topic here. I watched a documentary about a certain show, or a certain reality show that was very popular. And I know shows are fake. I get it. But I was actually amazed to the level of fake that it was. I mean, nothing. There might have been 2% of actual reality going on. And that's just because they're actual people and not AI yet. But my concern is that's really what we have with the economy. And if that's the case, then my other concern is this. If we are in a recession and we have some economic markers that are even worse than the Great Depression in the 30s, when this comes calling, it's going to be this Band-Aid or ripoff that's going to hurt so many. I can't even begin to imagine, to articulate the kind of destruction that we are headed for economically. But they seem to be comfortable lying about it just so they get their headlines, so their friends can get elected, et cetera, et cetera. Is this a fake economy?
Wow. Okay, Andrew. So, we actually, a couple of episodes ago, we spent the whole hour breaking down how to basically be a Sherlock level researcher, right? We gave you some inside knowledge on how we look at things. And I think that that's relevant here. People should certainly go back and watch that episode. But let's do a quick and dirty breakdown here. So numbers can be manipulated at a top line level. That's what you see run across your ticker on your screen if you're watching CNBC or whatever, to make things look good. But you'll notice that a couple of months later, they go back and they say something like, oh, we had to revise the job numbers from 3 months ago. They're actually way lower than we expected, but it'll balance out eventually. Andrew, here's what's incredibly dangerous, and the average working person in America needs to understand. CNBC, all of these channels and those fancy numbers and colors are all there to distract you or to make you feel good so that you're not paying attention to what's happening underneath. Here's the deal. Anything that you see on the public markets as a business you can invest in is basically the leftovers from all the people with inside information doing whatever they want to do and leaving you some scraps. Now, you may be lucky enough to catch some indicators, and they've basically rounded you into the equation. Your gain, if you become wealthy in something like that, is a rounding error. That would be you getting lucky on a stock at some point, or maybe being in the right place at the right time. They factor you in, but the majority of the people, that's never going to happen, right? So they've got to keep you distracted long enough that you're not watching the underlying numbers. Once you understand this fundamental key, Andrew, what you see on the screen, by the time you look at those funny numbers and those graphs and charts, it's all a lie. And it's a lie in the sense that the best of the deals are already gone. You're getting the leftovers, and they've got to keep doing that. They've got to keep showing you the S&P 500, the Dow Jones going up so that you're confident that the people that are supposed to be managing your retirement are actually doing their job. And I can point you to pieces that we've done in the past, Andrew, where we looked at teachers' pension funds and how they went to private equity. And when private equity started to lose, those boards actually went back to them, same thing with teachers, and said, go bet bigger. Take bigger risks because you've got to make this back. Most of those pensions are severely underfunded or empty. Andrew, this is the reality that we live in. And so you ask yourself, what's the answer? Well, let's go back to it. Realistically, this could probably go one of two ways. The first way is you have Mad Max. Everything just craters, everybody's broke and destitute, and then we just fight it out. It just becomes like an apocalypse, right? But the controlled demolition version of this thing is more attractive and actually solves both problems. So let's say that we wake up tomorrow and President Trump's on TV and he says, hey, listen, we're all wiped out. Market drop. But here's the good news. We're going to make you whole 1 for 1 with our new central bank digital currency. All you got to do is just say yes. So now he's got you. And guess what? You get made whole. So most of you are like, hallelujah, thank you, President Trump. This is the greatest thing ever, right? All the meanwhile, guess what? Central bank digital currency. Andrew, this is the reality that we live in. And if people don't speak up and say this, right? There was a thing that ran on CNN, is the government fudging the numbers? They fudged them for years. This isn't new news. And you are not holding enough disdain for the rot in the functions in your constitutional republic. If I may say, you need to be pissed off.
Oh, we don't hate these people enough. I mean exactly what I said. And CNN, that's laughable because they held the water for a lot of these cooking the books over the course of the last decades, going in for their favorite politicians. And again, that's why in Culture Crossroads, we hold water for nobody and we bend our knee only to the Lord. We want to bring the truth. I don't care who's doing something right or who's doing something wrong. If somebody scores points, we'll celebrate. But if people are screwing us over, we're going to call that out. It's got to be stopped. The way you stop an emperor with no clothes is by having the courage to get up and say, that dude's naked. Mm-hmm. And stop playing this. And really, we're in a fictional, imaginary fantasy land. And with what you just said, Trump gets up, we're wiped out. Here's your new one-to-one digital currency. Well, then it makes all the sense in the world why they would need to pass the Genius Act now. It makes all the sense in the world why they wouldn't care about blowing out the spending, because who cares? We're never going to pay it back. We're going to go ahead and bankrupt America because that's the only way to defeat the middle class, which is the strength of America and the freedom. As long as they have upward mobility, as long as they have freedom of choice, as long as they're not locked in their 15-minute open-air cities, we can't control them. How do we get rid of that? Get rid of their economy, get rid of their purchasing power, make sure that we're a nation of renters, make sure that their car can't go more than 300 miles an hour without an approved charge, and then we got them. And make sure that we can monitor everything about their health, including each bite of food that they take, and we've done a story about that too. Juliana, I'm going to ask you a very sexist question right now, because that's the kind of show that we are. You are a woman, an actual biological woman, in which there is such a thing. That's the first sexist statement I will say. Second, you are a mother, which a father cannot be because a father's a boy and a mother's a girl. Okay? That's the second sexist statement of the program. You also have kids. That's also what happens when you're a mother. I'm curious. I worry about these things to a degree to my kids. And I mentioned in the open that we're the first generation that we're preparing our kids for a worse future. I don't know, when you're talking with your kids or when you're talking with Next Gen in your travels, what are their concerns and how do you help give them some hope going forward that, because again, where it's not just, hey, lights out, turn the lights out, the party's over. What are you hearing from Next Gen, and how do you help them prepare? What's your message there?
So what I'm hearing from them is that the girls want to be stay-at-home moms and the boys want to be able to take care of the family and make sure that the kids can go off to college. But right now they know that they can't do that. And what I keep telling them is we need to come together and we need to build businesses. We need to build alliances because it is the middle class. Our marketplace ministry is all about making sure that we, the people, have the industries that we need to have, that we're having the businesses that we need to have. Barnes and Nobles came into Park Slope, where I lived. We had 4 different types of bookstores: a college bookstore, kid bookstore, regular bookstore, and a medical bookstore. It closed. All those bookstores closed. Barnes and Nobles wasn't even open yet, and they closed because they knew they couldn't compete. That's not right. Corporatocracy really hurts the middle class, and we need to push back on that and say, we, the middle class, need to continue to build businesses and help the younger generation do exactly that.
I don't know if you saw the note today. Kroger just closed several more stores from their grocery stores and their department stores around the country. In fact, we have more than 450 bankruptcies so far this year. That's Great Depression territory in terms of actual objective looking at the numbers. That's what you saw in the Great Depression around the nation. That's what we have right now. We had one more story, and I got to be honest with you, we don't have time for it. So in lieu of that, we do have a couple of minutes left in this segment. For either of you, RC or Juliana, you talk about we have to develop that parallel economy. We have to develop really a parallel community, almost a parallel class, if you will. What does that look like? Where can people start right now in their community to build that network?
Andrew, great question. And I think you go back to the levels of government that we've talked about on this show before, self-government, your family government, right? What are the needs for you and your family? That then expands to your community. Do you even know your neighbors? And if you do, have you guys discussed how your community works or functions, right? Because once you get there, then you can go to those you send to represent you at a city level and a county level and even a state level and say, here are our demands in order to ensure our freedom and safety and our ability to do commerce. And in the meantime, as you're doing that, you're working at a community level to ensure that the resources you need are actually available. We know we deal with hurricanes here in the state of Florida pretty regularly. How many people don't have any action plan whatsoever for even basic power to do basic things or to live without cell phone service? Because I tell you, once the hurricanes come through, that gets dead real quick. What is the plan there? You need to be thinking about that for your community at a basic level so that you can function come what may, but also it builds a level of resourcefulness, Andrew, that our forefathers had. And as a matter of fact, not that I agree with their theology or anything like that, but the LDS, the Mormon Church, has a system specifically designed, one of the best in the world, to make sure that you have enough food to eat and everything that you need, and also how to work with your community. They've done it for generations and they do it exceedingly well. The information is out there. And actually, Andrew, we link to most of this from the headlines. People can go and they can look. We have links so that you can get those lists and those things and basically a parallel economies blueprint. But we urge people now more than ever is to prepare. Take advantage of the resources that are free to you and get prepared now.
We have to look at this preparation because there's a stigma on it. Oh, you're a prepper, you're a doomsdayer, that kind of thing. That's not the case at all. I actually look at this as this is our weapon of civil offense in this culture war. And actually in this war on us, because it's on our class. It's not the elites that are getting bothered by it. And it's not the very poor because they're on the government rolls. That's where they want to put us all is there. If we are on the offensive and we can show that we don't need them, their power over us goes away.
That's it.
And that really is that's our blueprint for victory. And I believe that's the only way we see another dawning of liberty is if our government finally realizes we don't need them. And by the way, I mean that on the liberal side as well as the conservative side. We really don't need Donald Trump to defend our rights. We can do that ourselves. They're supposed to represent us and then be Romans 13, avenging angels, hopefully bringing accountability to the wicked. We're not really seeing that either. That's another problem for another day. But that's really where it's at. Remind everybody where they can find your work and get started on building the parallel America.
Yeah, Andrew. So people can go to Watchman Action. It's plural, watchmanaction.org. And I forgot to mention, Juliana's actually got one in her hand. Part of that parallel economy are goldbacks. So the goldback notes, as we're doing the show, have actually launched now in the state of Oklahoma. So that is state number 8, I believe. What a great way to do community commerce. You can find information on that, where we're going to be. The calendar's now up on the site, and all things Watchman Action, what's going on with us at watchmanaction.org. We encourage people to go take advantage of the resources and get yourself ready to go come what may.